reality, high vibrational, 5D living. I'm so excited you're here. Come on in. Hello, guys, and welcome back for another podcast. I am very excited for this episode. I have someone who's part of the Evolve community and who has studied human design and wants to share all about it with us. And this is something I've been really interested. I would say I was introduced to it probably I want to say 3 years ago. And I found out then that I was a projector. And then as time went on, I started to understand more about what that is and what that means for me. And just like with astrology, I feel like it's similar in the sense that it just allows us to feel seen and more understood. And we take what resonates and we leave what does not. And we don't really allow it to plant any seeds, but just to bring more awareness. And you guys know that I think Kundalini is incredible because of the awareness that it brings. And this is just another modality to understand more about yourself, how to be your highest self, how to be more efficient, how to allow yourself to rest. And you'll see what I'm talking about once we get into it. So I'm so excited to introduce Mirabel for being here. And this is the second time we're recording this episode, and I know it's always for a reason. So I'm just so grateful for her time, and I'm excited for all that comes through today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me again. Like I was saying off camera, I think it is perfect that it worked out this way. And you gave a beautiful introduction to human design, kind of explaining what it is and how it works. And one thing I wanted to add to that too is it's kind of just like an experiment, like in terms of the taking what resonates and leaving what doesn't. It's kind of just something that you can play with. Nothing is ever like set in stone, like saying this is you and this has to be the way that you function. It's all just trying it out. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have in this world.
I totally agree. And I think it's so important. And that brings up the idea of discernment. And it's something that I think comes through when you develop your spiritual practice and you're activating your intuition, especially through Kundalini. Your discernment becomes so strong where you're like, oh, that totally resonates with me, or that totally doesn't. But I remember years ago, I was much more impressionable. And if I would hear something, I would feel almost like I had to fit it or whatever it may be. And I just want everyone to know that you know you best, period, the end. And this is just something to help you have more awareness over yourself. And also, like I said, feel seen. And we're going to go into it. But after I found out I'm a projector, actually, a lot of people are very surprised I'm a projector. They think I'm a manifester or a manifesting generator, typically. But once I found out I'm a projector, it's so funny because like how you seem to the outside world can be so different than how you really are. And it's just so interesting. So we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm going to back up before, we get into any of the details. But first I want to ask you how you got into this, when this started, and how this journey began for you.
I honestly can't remember exactly when I found human design, but it must have been like 3 years ago now, kind of early 20s. I think around the time COVID happened, and I kind of just went down a rabbit hole because I've always loved astrology. I've always loved like tarot birth cards, like literally anything I could find that kind of tells me more about myself. I was super intrigued. So I reached out to someone to give me a reading initially. And again, it was like my mind was blown open. I had the recording and I listened back to it like over and over again. And exactly as you said, it was kind of just a permission slip for me to be myself and also to understand myself on a deeper level, how my emotions work and function. And at the beginning, I definitely went through that process of like attaching to these things. This person told me about it as if this is me and almost using it as like an excuse or a box to make sure that I would stay in that box or that I wasn't able to leave that box and do other things. But kind of through my own study and understanding it deeper and going through the layers and like doing the Kundalini, bringing in the self-awareness, all of these things, it was like, this isn't meant to hold you in a box. It's meant to empower you and give you tools to work with to use your energy optimally instead of working against it. So I'm a very extremities person where I'll completely swing the pendulum to one way and then I realize it's out of balance. And so I completely swing it the other way. So over time, it's kind of just practicing finding that like happy medium. And I think through sharing charts with other people and seeing where I have similarities within their charts, I'm able to kind of speak from my experience of how it's worked for me. And then also seeing different aspects of people's charts, like to be, I guess, a bit more specific, you said you're a projector. And again, we can get more into that, but a lot of people aren't projectors, but they feel like projectors. So it's like nothing is set to any one person. While we are unique in our own ways and have these aspects, every single aspect kind of fits into every individual person. So yeah, it's really interesting.
It really is. So, why don't we go into a little description of each of the types? Just like a brief intro into them so that maybe those who are listening can kind of guess and see what they think they are. And then we can give them more information of how they could find out.
Okay, so the most popular amongst the world population is generators and manifesting generators. The reason for this is because, as the name kind of gives or sounds, like these people are the generators of energy. The world wouldn't be able to function without these people because they're genuinely the people that bring like the life force energy to life. And that's their purpose in this world. So for generators and manifesting generators, their purpose is to follow the things that light them up, because it's through doing the things that light them up that everyone else in the world is inspired and lit up. So the only person you'll get that feeling, well, not the only person, but it's a very common thing that if you're in the energy of a generator, it's just like an expansive energy and you want like a taste of what they're kind of giving, because that's just like the life force that they bring and all that they do. That's the gift that they do. The difference between generator and manifesting
That's
generator
what I
is
was going
that,
to say.
yeah, generator kind of focuses more on one specific thing in life and then they build on that one skill. Again, that's not to say they can't do multiple things, but typically they kind of find one field and then they hone in on that skill, versus the manifesting generators are like the multi-passionate people. So these could be people that have like 5 different projects going at the same time or jumping from project to project. Or it's also common for manifesting generators to take like bits and pieces of kind of everything and mash them together into this new career path that never really existed before. So that's kind of the main difference. The manifesting generators are like the multi-passionate humans, they're called, and then generators are like just those juicy life force beings.
I'm giggling because my husband, is a manifesting generator, and that is
I see
him. Like,
that.
you do, like, you can see it from a mile away because there are so many different passions there, and they're all on the opposite side of the spectrum, and a lot of wheels or a lot of plates spinning, you know?
Mhm.
But what I was thinking when you were talking about generators is like how interconnected we are. And I think the ego creeps in a lot and gets in the way of us really seeing that. And so much else, like separation and just polarity on the planet right now, really gets in the way of us seeing the interconnectivity and how we all serve a purpose, and a greater purpose than we may even know or imagine. And how energy so real. And like, if it wasn't for generators, like you said, it would, I mean, as a projector, who, we're going to get to that, but who relies on that energy to come to the planet and like will build off of that, what would it be without that, and without having those beautiful people in your life? And It's just so interesting because we live like very separate lives, but with energy, we are all connected. And I feel like this is such a reminder of that.
Well, even that leads me to ask you. So, the thing that makes manifesting generators and generators a manifesting generator and a generator is that they have an energy center, and that energy is consistent there. So energy is constantly being run through there versus someone like a projector, they don't have that energy center consistent. So they get bursts of energy. But when you put
Oh,
those
yeah.
together, it's like a mirror. So with that, when you're around Vinny, for example, or anyone else who's a generator or manifesting generator, do you notice that you have like so much more energy and you can just go, go, go? And then
Yeah.
you'll go by yourself and you're like, holy shit, I'm so tired. Like if you do, that's kind of how that works. So we all are always feeding off of each other, and it's that dance and balance.
It's so interesting. Like, and it's very weird to have to accept that and understand that because my whole entire life I've been so self-reliant, and like at the end of the day, I want to generate anything that I want in my life. I want to be the one to bring it to me. And I never really wanted to rely elsewhere. And when it comes to energy, apparently I do without even knowing it. It's just like this natural thing that happens. And I'll give you an example. This morning, I felt very out of alignment. And I was recording a podcast as a guest for a really good friend who I think is 100% a manifesting generator, if not a generator. And I see that in her. She's just incredible. And I was almost in a place of like, you know what? I shouldn't even show up on this podcast because I'm not feeling my best right now. Soon as we got on, it was like, oh my God, like so in alignment with my higher self, like floating, buzzing, and the highs and lows are real. And people who follow me on Instagram and like really know me from the beginning, I feel like have to see that as well because when I'm feeling connected, I'm like all over. I feel so good using my voice and just flowing with creativity and sharing. And then some days I'm like, I cannot even look at that thing. Like I can't even look at my phone. I'm done. And it's actually something that I don't want to say I've been struggling with, but has come into my awareness that like with technology speeding up so much, it's as a projector, it's been a challenge because some days I want to get out there and I want to share. And then other days I'm literally like, what is happening in our world? Like, how are we doing this? So it's
Mhm.
everything you're saying is so spot on for me. It's incredible to hear this. And it's so true. Like feeling so charged up and then you run with that and then sometimes you get depleted. But the weirdest part about this is that I really like to be alone. So that's like a little bit of a conundrum. Can you clear that up for me? Didn't you say I'm the hermit? We didn't
Yes.
even get to
Well,
projector yet.
yeah. Well, that kind of leads me into
Yeah, let's
projector
go.
because
Let's go.
we all come here with energy functioning exactly how it's designed to function to carry out our specific purpose in this lifetime. So, with you feeling that you want to be alone sometimes versus like wanting to go out sometimes, projectors' value is in their ability to see and their perspective. So, I remember I used to say like projectors aren't designed to work 9 to 5s. Like, no, 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 that's
Yes.
not the case. That's not what it is. I recently learned that with projectors, they move more efficiently than the other types. So, what takes a generator maybe 8 hours to complete, a projector can do in 3 hours.
Oh my God. Or one. Like,
Yes,
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 I feel this
100%.
so much.
So a projector can work a 9 to 5, but they're not going to be doing output the whole time
Or
because
they won't
their
be there from
value.
9 to 5. They'll get all their work
Exactly, because they
done
get
in
it
like
done, so
2
they're
hours.
gone. Literally, exactly. So
Yeah.
that's the beauty of the projector. It's like the ebbs and flows, but majority of their time is meant to be like sitting back and watching because that's their way of gaining intel, which can then be put towards the output. And that's how they move so efficiently. And so, like, that's what projectors are here to do. They see systems things in a way that other people can't. And they're designed to bring that value to the world in the area that they kind of see best. In terms of you wanting to hermit and go back and forth, that ties in with your profile. So the profile is essentially our personality. There is one half of it that's more conscious, so how you view yourself. And then the second half of it is more so how other people view you. So in terms of the hermit part, that's your kind of outer personality more. So the number for you is 2. And these people are naturally good at one thing specifically, and they don't know how they're good at it. It kind of just is one of those things that they are good at. And then couple that with the projector. So it's like you really have this thing that you're good at. And then with projector, you're designed to kind of spend your time honing in on that craft. And the 2 very much does love to be amongst people, but they also need the time to retreat, to be by themselves, because that's how they recharge. And then the first number is the 6, which also includes that element. So 6-2 is very much like needing time to like sit back and just take bird's eye view. And that also is a thing with projector. So it's almost kind of doubled for you. But I also even think like you've kind of cracked the code as a projector, because with Kundalini, it's like so much energy that you're working with. And with projectors, they sometimes might not feel like they have as much energy as the other people, which kind of is the case, and it's perfect for them. But the fact that you've like tapped into this, and I'm sure so many of the other people that follow you are projectors as well, it's kind of like
A
you're
hack.
downing a Red Bull, and like I don't know, it's just kind of like your energizer, and it's amazing.
I feel that so deeply. And especially waking up, like I know when I wake up extra early and I'm tapping into this special energy on the planet and then through the practice, especially lately chanting mantra, it that's what it feels like way better than Red Bull. But like it just takes you over and you're like, I can do anything. And then you ride that wave. And actually now that you're saying this, I think that Kundalini is like the generator or manifesting generator for me. Like I do rely on that to ride that wave, and it fills me up, it gives me what I need. And that's I kind of like how you said crack the code. I think that's where I'm getting a lot of my I know that's where I'm getting a lot of my energy from. So it's like divine. Thank you, divine, for being the
Yes.
generator for me.
No, definitely. And even with your chart, like there's the centers in your chart. So you have like the upper centers and the lower centers, and they can kind of be likened to the chakras, the way that they show up, but there's 9
Okay.
centers. So for you, your top 3 centers are defined, which means they're kind of where you have consistent energy, and the bottom is all open. So it's very normal for you to feel like you're kind of floating up in thin air all the time.
That's
Like it's almost
me.
like a balloon. Like I just picture the bottom part
Literally.
of you dangling. So to always
Literally.
be in this practice, like it literally grounds you, brings you into your body, which is what you need, because the whole bottom is always taking in stuff from the outside world and does have inconsistent access to energy there. So that's kind of how you bring in that energy. And also, I think how you can hold space well for other people, because you can kind of, again, take in everything that they're feeling, take in every single stimulus that's coming in, and then you filter it through your body, which then goes to your mind and brings you all the information that you need to uh, like take the next step. And that's kind of how your intuition works as well.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting. And what else was I going to say with that? Yeah, that's
So
yeah.
interesting. I've said this before on podcasts, I think, but I literally tell Vinny sometimes, this isn't all the time, but I'm like, I'm not really here right now. And he's like, what do you like, Erica, what do you mean? That sounds weird. I'm like, I'm just not like my feet sometimes do not feel like they're on the ground.
Yeah, that's
I'm just like,
exactly it.
literally. And I'm like, wow. And I kind of like it. But sometimes I need to ground back because sometimes it's like very intense. But I have a few before we get to the last one, right?
Mhm.
Reflector is the last one.
There's manifestor and reflector.
Oh, right. Okay. So before we do that, I wanted to ask you, so you brought up some numbers and you brought up the energy centers. So I know that I'm a 6'2". That's not for all projectors, correct? That's just for my chart.
That's just for your chart. So everyone has a different personality. Like every aspect of charts is going to be different for everyone. And there are multiple categories in each chart, which I can go over briefly. So, like, people kind of know what exactly uh, a chart entails. But yeah,
Yes.
you specifically are a 6'2" mental projector, which, fun fact, is actually the most rare type of projector in the world. So you're a very rare breed. Um, but yeah, everything is going to look different for everyone.
What's a mental projector?
So, mental projector essentially means that, like I said, only the top three centers of your chart
Gotcha.
are defined. So, all your consistent energy runs up here, which makes
Mm.
sense again with your backstory of having lots of anxiety, because on the shadow side of this, these are the people that are always in their head, because that is a
Yep.
gift to have consistent access to energy up there. But if not conscious and aware of it, the consistent energy up there can drive you insane. So it's that's essentially what the mental projector is. And the mental refers to your authority, which is essentially how you access your intuition. So because you're mental authority, that basically means that you use your mind to make decisions, but not in the way that it like runs the show or jumps to conclusions. For you, it's like sitting back, taking time to allow all stimulus from outside to come in through your body, because all your bottom centers are open. Like your emotional center is open, your spleen is open, your root is open. Your heart's open, all those centers are open, which again, you can go deeper into what that means. But long story short, you're just always taking in stimulus. So over time, your body is collecting data, which slowly then trickles up into your mind. And if you're able to kind of observe all of the things that you felt without actually making logical sense of it, because again, it's feeling based, your brain can then come in and kind of provide the logic. And when your brain comes to its conclusion of like, this is what the natural progression is, that makes sense to me, not to like other people, but to me, that just makes sense, even if I don't know why, that's how you know when you can act on something.
Very interesting.
And again, like not a lot of people are mental projectors or just mental authority in general, but a lot of the people that are, again, the conditioning for society is like, don't use your head to make decisions. But actually, that's how you're designed to make decisions. Maybe it's kind of said in the way of like, don't let the ego kind of get in the way
Yeah.
and skew things, but that is a way that people can make decisions.
Very interesting. It's all like I feel so seen through this. And at first, when I heard I was a projector, I'm like, what? I'm not a manifesting generator. Like, I can't believe it. I'm not a projector. And the more I learn, the more I'm like, wow, this is really me. So that's very interesting about the number. So everyone has a different set of numbers that goes deeper to define their traits, I guess, and their authority. So when the centers are open, that just means you're taking in energy through them.
Yeah. So you take in energy through it and you amplify it. So one of the um, areas this can be looked at in is our emotional center. So people with the emotional center open, they take in emotions of other people and they amplify it. So if you're with someone who's feeling like a 2 out of 10 angry, sometimes they can't even recognize that they feel angry because it's so subtle and beneath the surface. And that's typically the emotional. So the people with that center defined. So I have that center defined. So right now, if I'm sitting with you and I'm feeling that 2 out of 10 angry, I can't sense it, but you can, because you then take that 2 out of 10 anger and you feel like 6 out of 10, you amplify it. So now you can
This
recognize
makes so much
that
sense.
there's anger that lives there, and then
Yeah.
you can kind of act accordingly. So that's how you build your emotional intelligence. People with this center open, their natural state is calm, cool, collected. All of their emotions are based on things that are happening outside of them, which you could say is the case for everyone, but that's actually not the case. The people with this center colored in, so defined, they have consistent access to energy here, meaning their emotion is always moving. It's like a wave that's constantly going, and that's their natural state, is the emotional wave. So for
Mm.
them, they can't always discern what they're feeling or why they're feeling things, because their emotions are driven from within versus the non-emotional is driven from without. So again, it's like another mirror. These two kind of need each other to understand their experience, and they build their own emotional intelligence in different ways.
So interesting.
I was like,
Wow.
what was the question again? I kind of just like went off there, but
No, no, I appreciate that because I think a lot of people, after they look up their charts, they could get so much information from what you shared.
yes, the
Yeah.
emotional center is like a huge, huge piece of it, because a lot of people are labeled as kind of overly emotional or not emotional enough. And there's just like, I think with emotions in general, there's like a ton of conditioning, but I think learning this about myself, that I'm emotional being, and it's natural that I'm always in some sort of wave, and I wake up some mornings feeling like shit for no reason. Like, again, that was like the permission slip of like, that's just how you function.
Mm.
And there's beauty and so much gifts that you can pull from it if you allow it to be kind of a gift versus like a burden.
So true. And we create so much resistance for ourselves sometimes. And that's where I think that permission slip comes in, because we judge ourselves and we worry about ourselves. Why am I feeling this way? Why do I experience this? We compare ourselves to others. Why aren't they feeling this way or experiencing this? But I think when we're able to step out of our way and be like, this is how I am. And not that we should need anything outside of us for permission, but sometimes we do for the first step, right? And I think that that's where it becomes so helpful to honor you as an individual and how unique you are, and allowing this to be a tool on that journey. So there's also, before we get to the other two types, there's also the invitation for each person, right?
So that's
Do they?
only for projectors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so this is what's called a strategy, and this is essentially how you make things happen in a way that's aligned with your energy. So
That's what I meant. Okay.
each type
Each,
has its own strategy,
yes. Okay.
except manifesting generator and generator is the same
Okay.
strategy. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I meant. Strategy. Not, I know that projector strategy is invitation, and how
Yes.
basically, well, do you know the strategy for manifesting generator and generator?
Yeah, so theirs is to respond.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
yeah,
So
do
what
you
does
want
that
me
look
to?
like? Yeah, tell
Okay,
me more.
so for generators and manifesting generators, their strategy is to respond. So basically, the best way, this is stimulus based, because that response lives in the gut. So if you go up to a generator and just ask them, like, what do you want to do with your life? Like, what do you want to eat? there's nothing to kind of spark that gut reaction. So they're not the ones that are designed to just know, which again is something we're kind of taught in society of like, you should just know what you want to do. But
Yeah.
that's not how these people work. So one of the suggestions for generators and manifesting generators, or like parents who have them, is if you're asking them what they want to do, instead of making it like an open-ended question, give them options. So like, do you want sushi or do you want pizza? Do you want to go here or do you want to go there? And that's how they can slowly start to get in touch with that reaction. So to respond is basically just giving yourself things to respond to. And if you think about it, like there's always stuff to respond to. So if generators or man gens ever feel like they're like uninspired or they don't know what to do with their life, like go on Instagram and scroll through and see what evokes a reaction in you. Like go on the streets and like go to a cafe, just anything that you see that kind of sparks that reaction, that's what the response is. And then that's then what allows them to act on those things. But it also needs to be tied in with the authority, which is again how they access their intuition. So it's like, okay, I've responded to this thing, and can I act on it right away because my gut, like, no. It's confusing a little bit because the gut is where the people respond to for manifesting generators. But if you have gut intuition, it super lives in your gut. But if you have, say, an emotional intuition, you'll get that gut feeling about that thing that you want, but then it's allowing yourself to kind of ride an emotional wave and get to a neutral spot to then make a decision. So there's kind of layers to it, but
Yeah.
like that's essentially what the premise of the responding is.
Interesting. And then for the projector.
And then projectors, like you said, it's an invitation. So being invited. And again, this can be like a formal invitation. So someone actually inviting you, or more so, you sensing that someone needs something from you. So the biggest piece with this for projectors is in their own personal recognition first. So that's what projectors want overall. This is what is their sign. So the sign is like the telltale feeling that you're living your design. And for a projector, it's recognition. Or no, projector is success, sorry. But with success, it's like being recognized. So if a projector is kind of going out in the world, flailing things in people's face of like, I have this thing and I think it's really cool, from a place of wanting to be successful or wanting to be recognized, but not recognizing the gift that they have within themselves, that's when it will be like rejected, whether a person isn't ready to receive it, or whether again it's kind of being reflected back to you that you don't see the value in it yourself. That's not how they're designed to work. So when a projector can have this thing and they're like, damn, I know this is so cool, I know I'm really good at it, and I know other people need it, their task almost is to create like a hub for that to live, and then to let the people
Like
come to
evolve.
them, like evolve, like your Instagram page, like you got it set up, like you got it all. And
It's so
it's
creepy.
like, instead of running up to the streets to people being like, hey, check out evolve, because I'm sure there are people out there where you do that to and they're like, breath work, and I'm like going to the
Yeah.
ethers, like, pardon.
Yep.
So
Yep.
for you to have that hub, it brings the people to you who are meant to come to you. And
Oh,
it's because you're doing it from that place of like, I believe in this with my heart and my soul, and me just speaking about it like will bring everyone who's meant to see it. It's like the people that are at that frequency come to that frequency. And it's just a waste of your
oh,
breath if you're running to other people and trying to tell them and make them see the beauty in it. And I guess that's with anything in life. Like, you can't make anyone see it, they have to be ready to. So that's why the
Satnam.
invitation is in place. Yeah, to like save a bunch of energy that just doesn't need to be put out to those people, or they aren't ready for it.
That's so perfect because I feel like that's literally how I started this. I was actually just talking to someone that's part of my team, and I was having a moment just again with about technology and social media and all of this, and we were talking about how this all was created like with not one business course, with like nothing about my business is a business. It's all intuition, it's all passion, and it's all that knowing of this helped me and I know so many people need this and that it could help so many other people. And it's almost like a big sigh of relief to know that I just got to do me. Like that is it. I just got to do me and show up as me, and that's it. Everyone that's aligned will come. And that's really what I believe at the core. But of course, there's always ego that comes in, or there's outside forces, or even comparison of like, how are other people doing this and what are they doing to grow and expand? And I always come back to like, your intuition, just follow it, just be you. So you just affirm that. And it's definitely a message I wanted and needed tonight. So thank you. So
Yeah.
powerful.
Well, it's
And
like you're doing it for you. And so that's ultimately like the reason that other people come is because we all do it for ourselves. And it's like
yeah.
beautiful that you've created the space for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful that it aligned us. I wanted to share that the invitation part, we're going deep with projector, obviously, because I'm a projector. We're going to get to the other two, I promise. But I feel like I see that in my life with even friendships. Like I have to feel very welcome before I put myself out there. And I understand that piece of like the invitation doesn't need to be formal. And then you mentioned something about almost feeling like needed. Is that what you said? Or did you
Yeah.
say it different than that?
Yeah, it's like sensing the needs of other people. So maybe someone is coming to you and asking you a question, but you can sense like an underlying tone of what they're actually asking. So in those scenarios, like that's your invitation to then
Yeah.
kind of, or like not even asking you a question, but just coming to you and saying something. And you're like, okay, like
Yes.
I feel you. And then you can, like, that's the invitation. And you're like,
And then
okay,
like
you
2
pulled me
minutes
in.
later, we're best friends. We're like best
Exactly.
friends. But otherwise, like it's like all or nothing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let's move on. I feel so filled by everything you just shared. Let's move on to the next one. I feel like we kind of went out of order because I was so eager to get into projector, but typically like manifestor would come first in popularity. Well, it would come
No, actually.
after. It would
Yeah.
come after manifesting generator and generator, right? It would come third.
No, it would come after projector. So
Oh,
manifestors are also
really?
quite rare. Yeah,
Oh, wow.
less
Okay. I
rare
didn't
than
know that.
projector. I believe projector is about 30% of the population. Manifestor might be 12. That's the number that's coming to me. I can't
I
remember
thought it was the
exactly.
opposite.
No. So yeah,
Really?
manifestors are very rare. I've only come across one manifestor and I was doing a reading for someone's child and I was like, oh, like this is
How
really good that they're
cool.
coming. But yeah, that was the one I've ever come across. Other than like some people online I'm aware of, but
Wait, what are
yeah,
you?
I'm a generator.
I'm like, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm all charged up. She must be a
No,
generator.
it's funny because my bottom three centers are defined and your top three are. So I feel like it's like this perfect balance of like, I keep you down here, you bring us up here, and then in the middle, the shit's just flowing. So it's like the
I love
perfect
that.
balance.
I love it. I feel it.
Yeah. So manifestors, they're like the initiators. And actually, in history, all kings and queens were manifestors. These are the people that are just here to like dance to the beat of their own drum, to really do them. Again, that's also tied into other types, but specifically them, because they're actions and following what they want to do through initiating is what like moves mountains and creates movements, and sparks things in other people that really kind of turn other people's heads, like weren't ready for it or are were like waiting for it. So that's kind
Mm.
of the power of the manifestor. They're like this creative, powerful force. And then lastly, we have reflectors, and this is
Wait,
like,
what? Sorry, can we back up for a minute? What's their
yeah,
like a do we go through their authority and what's the other thing?
the strategy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so strategy for manifestors is to inform. So basically, they're meant to tell other people what they do before they do it so that the energy is like put out in the world versus them just like kind of going out there and doing whatever and then getting this like massive blowback or reaction from people that they almost weren't ready for. So a big thing for manifestors is to unapologetically move how they want to move and to not be afraid of what other people are going to think. So a big thing with conditioning is that manifestors do get afraid, so they don't end up informing anyone in fear of what their reaction will be, what they might say, and so then they kind of just go out and do their thing. And while they can still make strides, that's just not how the energy functions. They need to go to people and like put it out in the world of like, hey, I'm doing this. That then like opens the energy or the space in the world. Even if the other person doesn't receive it, they just need to feel like secure in themselves, and like they surround themselves with people that are that safe space that just let them like do what they want to do, which I think is why this is so beautiful for parents to know for their children, because to be able to accept your kid for everything that they are, for everything that they want to do, trusting that like they might know themselves more than the parent does, and like
I've
letting them
chills.
run with that. Like, how powerful is that to give that to your kid who can then take that with them as they grow older, and to feel like it's like they can do anything, that because that's their power, is being independent and doing what they want to do. So
So
that's
powerful.
like, yeah, very powerful manifestors.
Wow. I have chills.
Yeah.
And how cool for parents to hone in on all of this just to have more understanding, because I believe that the children that are coming onto earth right now are just so much more wise
I
than
think that's
ever
like,
before.
it's my favorite reading to do. Like, I'm dancing
Yeah.
just thinking about it, because to have parents who like
Yeah.
care to
Yeah.
learn this stuff about their kids, to nurture them in a way that they were like designed, you know how much like deconditioning that's going to save
Yeah.
them down
Yep.
the
Yep.
line. Like,
Yep.
it just blows my mind. If my parents had this, I like, man, I would have been a different life, that's for sure.
And yeah, and like I believe that so many parents care for their children, but this is like a different, like you said, this is this is just more awareness, because sometimes we act from a place of caring, just like you said about the conditions from the past. However, our parents showed that they cared for us. We can be holding those same conditions, practices, and patterns and bringing that to the next generation. But when we're able to receive this awareness, it's just like, wow, I thought caring was, I'm going to input, worrying about the people I love, because that was a huge theme in my family. But now it's like, oh, wow, now I know caring is allowing my kid to explore and to have faith and whatever else. So that's really cool.
Right, and there isn't
Anything
one
else?
way. Oh, sorry. There
No, go
isn't one
ahead.
way to parent either. So it's like we can read
Yes.
what's in the books, we can read all the blogs and like whatever. A big thing for me just in life in general is worrying about doing stuff wrong. But when you look all around you and everyone is doing things in different ways, like who's to say what's right? So when you can kind of have this knowledge and parent your kid unique to them versus like this cookie cutter in a box, like generic way of how you should be doing it, it's just such a gift, like so much more powerful to like
Yeah.
individualize it to them.
And I'm even thinking like in relationships too, like understanding your partner and what their strength is and what their challenges may be based off of their design. It it helps us have awareness, and when we have awareness, we have more compassion for ourselves and others. Okay, so what about reflector?
Okay, yeah. So reflector is the very rare type. It's like 1% or less than 1% of the population. And they're essentially the mirrors for society, because their centers or their chart is completely open, which means that anyone that comes in their presence is going to have themselves reflected through this person and expanded.
Wow.
So you can imagine that reflectors are probably the ones with the most pushback, because how many people walk up to a mirror and they don't want to look in the
I love
mirror?
you.
So they're like,
I love, yeah. How many are like, I love you just the way you are, girl?
yeah,
Like,
exactly. Nothing wrong, nothing triggering. They're like twitching.
yep,
Like,
yep.
but yeah, that's the purpose of the reflectors, is to kind of just be a mirror for everyone, for society as a whole. They are our greatest teachers, I would say, because they always have something for us to see, even if we're not directly talking to one. But if we're like, if you hear someone who's a projector on a podcast or like through TV, there's always something that you're gonna see in them because you're just seeing yourself.
Yeah. Jordan Younger, she actually inspired me to start this podcast because I love her. She's a reflector and she talks about this a lot there as well. But I feel my best when I'm around her because I don't know. I just like I feel so at peace and she allows me to feel like love conquers all and like the light
Mm-hmm.
always wins, like all of that energy. And I'm like, yes, where, when you step out into the world, a lot of people don't have that belief or feeling just because fear is so prevalent. But she's a reflector and she's an amazing teacher as well with all that she shares.
Yeah, and it's beautiful
Yeah.
because I think she's also a very kind of deconditioned version of a reflector. So, a very kind of clear channel and mirror
Mm-hmm.
for people
Mm-hmm.
to see the best version of themselves. And not to say there aren't still things that we may see that like rub us the wrong way or whatever it is, but it's because I think she's such a clear channel that she gives us that ability to see all of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. So what is there, did you mention their authority and
Authority,
um
or a strategy, sorry.
strategy?
um I don't believe that, or I think the strategy, yes, okay, the strategy of a reflector is to just, I think it's waiting like a full moon cycle. If you can tell, I haven't like come across anyone who was a reflector, but I
Wow.
do believe that's their strategy, is just like giving it time. And they're very tied into the moon. I think for them it's waiting a lunar cycle to make their
Interesting.
decisions. Like they just need time based
So
on
interesting.
what's going on up there.
Wow. I love this conversation. I could literally ask you a million questions. So, if someone wanted to find their chart, I just have Googled human design or like myhumandesign.com and went there for it. Do you have any other suggestions?
Yeah, I really like myhumandesign.com. Jenna Zoe is one of my favorites. But honestly, any chart generating website, you can find it. Usually, in terms of getting the actual information, not a ton of websites cover that. So you can find anything though through like a Google search, or there's lots of content that you can purchase as well to kind of understand it deeper. But yeah, just in terms of calculating the chart, I like myhumandesign.com the most.
Yeah. And when people see their chart, it can be like very overwhelming. But I feel like now, with all the information you shared, I'll understand it more because I didn't understand like what open, like my spleen was open. I'm like, oh God, that doesn't sound good. It sounds like it hurts. Like, what is
Yeah.
that? But now I understand a lot more. So hopefully when they see it, are there any other tips you have for like if they were to look at their own chart aside from what you already shared?
Yeah, so type is definitely the most important. It's actually said that when we align with our type is when everything else kind of just naturally falls into place. So the type really is like a big piece of our profile, or our chart. Another important piece, I think, is, I don't like, I think it's all so valuable. Um, the incarnation cross is definitely cool. That's essentially like our life theme. So kind of ties in with our purpose, but I guess when I think purpose, I think like grand scale of like my job, career, or like the over like whatever. It just seems really big. But life theme is essentially called a theme because it's meant to be brought into every single area of your life. So if your life theme is to like, mine, for example, is to just have unwavering faith in the universe.
I love that one.
Yeah. I remember I read it through another resource and it was like, you have the energy to struggle in this lifetime. And I was like, oh, but then
Cancel
it was
clear.
word. Yeah. So again, also be like discerning with the resources you're reading. Cause for me, I was like everything is a struggle. And I'm just like, okay. But then I read this other one that was like more empowering. And it was like just
Yeah.
having unwavering faith through all the obstacles you go through. And I was like, okay, I can run with that.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, so it's like it's not just meant to be brought into like one aspect of my life, but all of them. So like having faith that like anything will work out no matter what
Yeah.
it is.
That's beautiful.
So I think the cross is really cool for that. And then that also ties into gene keys, which is a whole other beast of a modality. But that covers lots of things in terms of like your life purpose, what keeps you healthy, like what you're here to learn in this lifetime. And it's all kind of numbers that tie in. So incarnation cross is a really big one. And then profile also, because that's personality. You can kind of see how your innermost self is and also how other people view you, which I think is really helpful
That's through the
because,
numbers, right?
yes, through the numbers, there's lots of value that can be pulled from that. Um, yeah, I would say those are like the other really cool couple ones. And then also
Wow.
emotions. I always think there's value that you can learn whether you're the non-emotional and
Wow.
you like pull those emotions from other people and amplify them, or the emotional when you're always in the emotional wave. Um, there's so much.
So interesting. So you do one-on-one readings?
Yes.
Amazing. So how can everyone find you if they want a reading with you?
So people can, I don't really use Instagram, so I'm trying to think of my username actually.
Your
I
email, even.
Yeah, email. It's my first name, Mirabel, so Mirabel dot last name Bainwall, BAINWOHL @gmail.com. You can just send me an email. I'm also in the process of getting a website up. I'm not sure when that will be up, but it's an easier way to contact
That's so
me.
exciting.
But yeah, for now, it's just the email.
So exciting. That's perfect. I'll actually put it in the show notes. So if you guys didn't catch that as you're listening, it will be there in the show notes. And I'm sure so many people are going to want this experience with you because I know it brought me so much value in just what you shared here and what you shared before with me. And there's just so much to uncover and discover about ourselves. And that's what I feel this journey is all about, just learning more about ourselves so that we can show up as our best self to everyone else that we come into contact with and everyone else we have relations with. So thank you so much for this. I'm so excited to share this information. I actually like want this to go live ASAP. But thank you. Thank you so much for being here and for taking the time. And I'm excited. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. And I remember last time, the last question you asked me was if there was one more thing I wanted to cover on your chart that I thought was really cool.
Oh
And the
my God.
thing that I said, I regretted it. And so I'm glad
I
that
I
we
don't I
have.
actually don't remember. So
I
maybe
can't
we're not
remember what I
supposed
said
to.
either,
I'm
but
like,
there
maybe
was
we're
just,
not supposed to.
yeah, but there was another piece that like, we got off the call and I was like, damn, why didn't I say that? But so if I could just go over that quickly with you.
Yes, please. I would love to
So
hear.
in human design, there's also something called the environment. So that's essentially like the, I guess, place that we best function in, but it's not always so literal. So, for example, like I'm a mountains environment, but that doesn't mean I thrive most in the mountains. It can also be like, what do you associate with mountains? So it can be like bird's eye view, being on a higher level, like those sorts of things. So for you, your environment is shores. And again, while this can
Duh.
be literal, so like being on an actual shore, and I heard
Yeah.
this is more important after your Saturn return, which I haven't had yet. So for all I know, I'm going to hit Saturn return and be like, get me in those mountains. But um, for you,
I moved to the beach during my Saturn return.
okay, so
Hello.
there you go.
So
And like
excited.
environment is very, very important because like your health is actually dependent on the environment, because if you think about like that being your foundation, if that foundation is off, kind of everything is off. So being in a line with the environment is very important. So for you, like I said, it's shores. So this can be literal shores. Go ahead. Do you have to?
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Okay. So,
I'm just so excited.
okay, for environment, it can be literal shores, but also a shore is a place of transformation. It's where
Mhm.
one thing enters into another. And I just think it's so beautiful, again, that you've made like your life path, and I guess I can say career out of this is being in that world. Like that is where you are your most radiant self and in your highest health, is like being in that place where you can be in the world between worlds, like or like
Yeah.
transitioning from one place to another. Like another example of this is like the entryway of your home should be such a sacred place for you. Or not should, but it can be such a sacred place for you because, again, it's where you're entering one scenery and you're going into another. It's like that place of transformation almost. So that's like a really big thing for shores people. These people might like walking a shoreline because, again, you can kind of see where one thing is going into another. These people can really like other realities, so like getting lost in books or anything like that, because it's a place that they can kind of just
Yeah.
move to.
Yeah.
These people can like pacing. That can be actually a way for them to process things, is by like going back and forth, because you walk to one side and then you can look back and see where you came from and then you can go back that way. Or like swimming laps or being in a boat and going into a body of water and then coming out. It's like that's just so fulfilling for a shores person.
Yeah.
And
And
so I
like
just
different
thought that was
realms
really cool.
almost.
Exactly. That's exactly what it
And
is.
it's so wild that I literally moved here during my Saturn return. And I always said, like, I know that going plant based was a catalyst for me to find Kundalini because that's what I needed at the time to be on the frequency. And this is just for me, not for everyone. But I also said that being near the beach was a huge part of this, and like this evolution and tapping into gratitude. And I it's overwhelming actually. You're like really taking me back to that feeling of when I first moved here and started to feel that connectedness just from going outside on the boardwalk and like looking at the sky and being like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And like in an indescribable way. And then the next thing you said about the environment is so interesting because a really big as I was leaving, so for those who are listening, I recently left my teaching job. I was an elementary school teacher to do what I do now full time because I know it's my life calling and it's my dharma. And it became very uncomfortable to do something outside of that for so many hours as a projector, having to be somewhere from a set time to an end time. It was just becoming overwhelming. And one thing I would often think about, I had to talk to myself a lot during that process to really make sure. It was a very big deal in my family for me to leave a very secure, great job. And it was a wonderful job, just not for me. But I had to talk myself into this a lot to make that really hard, scary decision. Which, well, that's how it felt anyway. But one thing I would say, this is a long way to come about this, but I wanted you to hear that first. One thing I would say is my environment is going, like, I would just hear exactly what you said. Like, I can't even rephrase it because it's exactly what you said. I would think about how that environment was going to impact my health on like the most detailed levels because I'm a very sensitive person. And like having to eat at a time that I didn't want to eat just because it was lunchtime bothered me. I'm like, but I
Mhm.
don't know. Like I don't want to eat now. Like I want to eat an hour from now maybe or when my stomach growls. Like just because the schedule tells me I have to eat now doesn't mean I should. And then I start to think like how is that going to impact my digestion and my health? And like I would really think about that. And that was a huge it played a really big role in me being like, okay, I know I'm supposed to live a more intuitive life because I'm a very sensitive person. And that doesn't mean anyone listening here has to quit their job because they're not eating the time that they want to. But for me, that was a piece of it because I'm very sensitive and very intuitive. So that was just like when you said that, I was like, oh my God. Wow.
Well, that is also part of your design too, is you're not designed to be super consistent and regimented. Some people are here to do that. Like they find a meal time that works for them and they can eat that time every single day. It saves a lot of mental energy for them. But you're actually designed to be more like go with the flow and just sense what your body needs in the moment. But even anytime well, first of all, I admire so much that leap that you took because I imagine from the one side of like the energy it must have taken to like be working two jobs, like a full teaching job, and then going home and building up Evolve. Like as a projector, I'm like burnout, like burnout. That's what comes to me. So I'm sure like over time it kind of did get to that. But even to have the faith and the knowing that that's what was for you, it's like just so beautiful because again there's so much like security, I guess you could say, in knowing in that path. But if
Yeah.
it's not fulfilling to you or you kind of know exactly where it's going, I don't necessarily think there's too much excitement in that of like knowing exactly where the path is going to go. Like we say we hate uncertainty, but to actually be in uncertainty and like be able to feel the thrill of it and how amazing it is in comparison to like, oh, I know where that's going. Like we all want that in life. So it's beautiful. And then you just speaking too about the shores, like I get the feeling that I had when I was in ceremonies with plant medicine of you speaking about you being in the shores. Like that's just home. And I saw you as like this beautiful, like mermaid, like water being. Like that's just your home. It's like, it's where you are. And it's, like that feeling, there's no
Yeah.
comparison to that feeling. It's just like a breath.
Yeah, totally. Although I do see myself more as a seagull than a mermaid or
Okay.
a sea creature. I just want to sit on the sand. I don't necessarily want to be in the water, but yes, like so at home there. I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
channel the mermaid energy, but the ocean's a lot of energy. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot and it's overwhelming, but to be right in front of it is the most calming experience, which is so funny. And that's perspective. Like just a few feet,
Yeah.
it could be a whole different experience, you know?
Mhm. It's
So
like
interesting.
Medusa. Is that who it is? I don't know, but it's just
Yes.
like a water person where like the
Yes.
water is almost coming up around you. So it's
Yes.
like you're
Yes. Yes.
in it,
Okay.
but
Yes.
you're not in it. Like,
Yes. Exactly. Exactly. Oh my goodness. So interesting. I appreciate all of this. Is there anything else you want to share?
I don't think so. Just yeah, like find your chart and experiment.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's literally nothing to lose, like, but
And get
so
a
much to
reading with
learn.
Mirabel.
Thanks.
I mean, this was for me so affirming,
Mm,
so affirming. And that's so, it's just so cool to be able to understand yourself on that level. There was something else I wanted to say too about the practice. Just that Kundalini's really, when you were talking about me being a projector and working like two jobs, and I owe it all to the practice. Like I owe everything to the
mm-hmm.
practice, but like I owe that all to the practice because without it, like when you wake up at 5 a.m. and you do Kundalini, you find energy you never knew you had. And you know, because you practice, like you're like, holy crap. And like you think you're going to be, I was always a sleeper my whole life. Like I still like to get 8 hours of sleep, but I know less sleep and an earlier practice is actually going to serve me more in my experience. Everyone's different. But yeah, so
It's the only thing that will
great.
get me out of bed. Like the one thing where I wake up and I look at the clock and it's 5:30 and it's like I could roll over or I could take advantage
Wow.
of this time to do a
I
nice
know.
long practice. Like it's amazing.
And doing it enough where you know what it will bring, that's what keeps you coming back because it's not easy to wake up early and it's not easy to do a lot of what we do. A lot of the practice, it's very hard to be honest. And it's that feeling that like keeps you coming back. But yeah,
It still
definitely.
surprises me to make it to like 9 p.m. and be like, huh, I could
I
still keep
know,
going. Like,
right?
I was doing a meditation this morning and I remember you saying, I think it was Breath of Fire, and you're like, it gives you 60% more energy to like get through the day that you wouldn't have had, or something along those
So
lines.
it's
And I was
11
like, huh,
minutes. 11 minutes of conscious breath work will give you 60% of your energy that you wouldn't typically have. So that would be like non-existent
wild.
if you didn't do the 11 minutes of breath work. So it's really incredible. But yeah, sorry, it always comes back to Kundalini with me. Here I go.
But it has to. I'm like, let's go into your world now.
Thank you so much. Listeners, we are so grateful that you're here with us and that you are here to just learn from Mirabel all things human design. I hope that it brought you so much wisdom and understanding and awareness for yourself and maybe give you a little bit of a sense of where you might fall here in human design. But connect with Mirabel through her email. I'll link it in the show notes. And I'm so grateful that you were here tuning in with us. May the longtime sun shine upon you. Thank you so much.